Hi everyone, this is Krista with Art Graphic Studio. Today I'm going to show you how to upload, resize if necessary, and assemble 4 different shutter cards. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. So let's get started. If you have not already downloaded your SVG file, you can go to my Etsy shop by going to etsy.com and searching for Art Graphic Studio. Then scroll or search for the SVG you're looking for. If you are a Cricut Design Space user, you may be able to access my free designs. For more information, see my note at the end of this video. Sometimes, depending upon your system and/or your software, you may have to resize your uploaded design before you can make it. While I'm demonstrating this in Cricut Design Space, the same principles apply no matter what software you're using. So to get started, you'll need to upload your design files. Now, typically in Cricut, this is going to be an SVG file, but there might be other files, PDFs or PNGs or JPEGs. So let's go to Upload, Upload Image, and Browse. Now we're going to go to where we know our files are, in this case, crafts and envelopes. Now today I'm going to show you on this 4.5 by 9.5 inch envelope. So I'll open that and open the SVG file. Now here's our file. So let's upload that. And here it is. Now let's just click on that. And you see this green border? That indicates that it's selected. So we want to add that to our canvas over on the lower right. Now here we have it. Let's make it a little smaller so we can see the whole thing. Now you can see it's all grouped, but before we ungroup it, we need to do one thing, and that is to resize it, or to see if we need to resize it. In this case, I said I wanted a 4.5 by 9.5 inch card. So I'm going to create a rectangle, unlock the edit, and change that to width of 9.5 and a height of 4.5. Oops, 9.5. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to move this size that I know to be the correct size into place. About there. And as you can see, that's pretty close. So I think I'm just going to use that. And I'm going to get rid of that because I don't need it now. But let's say, for example, our envelope or whatever our project was came in at a different size. So here's the size we wanted, but as we can see, it's way too small. So what we want to do now is to adjust the size of the project. In this case, it's an envelope. So I'm just going to grab the corner and I'm going to expand it until I get it about where I think it ought to be. Now I've gotten it a little too big, so I'm going to reduce that. And there, that's about what we need for it to be. So we don't need our rectangle anymore. And here we are, ready to start designating our score lines. So now we know it's the right size. Let's go ahead and ungroup it. Now we want to change our score lines into score lines because they come in as cut lines. And in order to do that, click on the area that you know to be your score lines. And the way you know these will be score lines is because this box right here turns red. So we want to change basic cut to score. Now you can see that we have our score lines. Now all you have to do is select both your score lines and your design and attach them. Now you're ready to make it. And when it comes up, you can see that your score lines and your design is all on your cutting board. This is the iris shutter card. And here's the mock-up that comes in the file that you download. I have chosen on mine to make it a Wish You Were Here or I Miss You card. So let's get started. This is our cover. Here's our card base. This is our inside sentiment, and these are the mechanisms. This is what you will see inside the iris when you open the card. And as you can see, this is how the iris works. And the sentiment will be right in the center there. All right, let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to put our blades in our mechanism, part one of our mechanism. And you want to make sure when you do this, you've got 2 small tabs on the bottom, 2 to the side, and your curves are going clockwise. If you have it upside down, it won't work. Also, you make sure that your blades go counterclockwise. So as you put these in, put your blade in like this, and then line up the outside. It's going to overlap a little bit on the inside. That's okay, that's what you want. So we're going to line that up, and then I'm going to put a little bit of tape to hold that in place just until we get ready to glue it down. Then we're going to take the next one and we're going to slip it into the next hole. Also line it up on the outside and put a little piece of tape on this, close to this end. Now you've got some X score lines. You don't want to cover that with your tape because you're going to need those in a minute. Then we're going to take the last one, same thing, slide it in the hole, line it up, you want to push that as far as you can get it into there, line it up with the outside, and another little piece of tape on this end. We'll take that piece of tape off in a little while. Now I have 2 of these, mainly not because I need to particularly, but I want a little bit of strength because this will be the moving mechanism on that. So I made 2 of them and I'm going to glue those together. Now you want the arrow so that it's going clockwise. Just line those up carefully. I made a little arrow. I'm just going to put that right in there. Okay. Now we want to take this and we want to put some mini glue dots right where those little X's are. Next, we'll want to add this to this. We've got our glue dots on. And you'll note that the tabs are in this situation. So when you put this on, you want to put this just slightly above that tab on the side, lining up the edges. Then you want to take your circle and you want to put it right in the center. Now you don't want to glue this down. You want to glue these tabs. And when you fold these tabs over on this, leave a little bit of room, a little wiggle room. So that they're not really tight, because you want room for that iris to move. Line it up good. Don't get your glue too close to the edge either. And here again, we're going to give this a minute to dry. Because we will be spinning the iris. All right, we need to take off our little pieces of tape so that it will spin. All right, now here we are. Here's our iris. Okay, now all we have to do is put our card together. All right, now what you'll be doing is you'll be gluing your inside sentiment right about in there. And I've made it a little bigger than the aperture opening. But you want to make sure everything lines up before you start gluing things down. And that is going to be about right. So I think right where that circle is, we can go ahead and glue that down. Now, when we put this on here, we want to line that up to make sure we've got it in the right place. But we want to close our iris. And we want to put this on here. And we want to line our iris up so that the tab is here. See how that works? All right, put your finger right there, and you can put a little piece of tape to hold that in place. Now you don't want to put any glue on these little, just on the in-betweens. Okay, let's let that dry. Now we can put our outside on. And I'm going to put that on with dimensionals to give it a little room. And you don't want your dimensionals to get in the way of your lever. So keep it to the outside on this top. So you don't want it to be any further than that. So we're just going to put a little piece right there. And then we're going to put all the way down on the other sides. Line this up. Press it down. And we have our iris opening. All that's left to do is to put the sentiment on the inside. And you can put this up with dimensionals too, but I think I'm just going to glue it down. You've got plenty of room for a sentiment if you want to do that. Salutation. And so here's your card. Here's your finished card. And here's your card. Now, if you decide to use a tab like this, now you're going to have to include your envelope. You may have to make an envelope to fit the tab.
card is 5 by 7, and including the tab, it is almost 6 inches. So you'll need a 6 by 7 envelope if you are going to be mailing it. That's all there is to it. Here is the shutter blind blank like you have in your project. And you just pull this up and the shutter's open to expose what's underneath. On mine, I have decided to make a Christmas card. And these are the components that go in my card. Now on my blades, for my shutter blades, I actually have a pattern. So if these three are the same size, of course this one's smaller, but if you are using a pattern, you want to make sure your pattern is, when you install them, you want to make sure your pattern is in the right order. All right, let's get started. This is where the blades for the shutters will go. And we'll start with the bottom one, and I will put it in this slit right here, and I will push it up as far as it'll go and make sure it's nice and even. Then I'll turn it over and I will glue down this little tab. Then I'll take the next one, put it into the next slit. Again, I'm going to line it up, make sure these two are lined up together. Then I'm going to take the next one. Now these next two you probably want to put in at the same time. Well, you do want to put them in at the same time and then glue them out at once because they do overlap. So again, make sure that that's all the way to the top and lined up. Put the next one in. All the way to the top and make sure that these are both lined up with the others. Then you want to turn it over, glue down this one, and then this one. Okay, then we want to take this and put it on the back, and all it does, it just hides all of this stuff. Line that up nice and tight. All right. Now the next two steps are a little tricky, but you can do it. You want to take this piece and you want to slide it just over that lip, and then the same thing for the one. You probably have to kind of work on both at the same time. All right, there we go. Got them in there. So you want to push that all the way to the bottom, so it sits snug at the bottom. Line it up kind of in the center there. And then we're going to put a little glue just under here and under here. And we're going to let that dry. All of this should dry very well before you start putting the next step, because it's a working mechanism, so it does take a little strength in the cardstock. All right, so now we need to put our slats in this. And the way we do that is that each of these will go into one of the slits. So we want to the very last one, we want to put that in there. And then the next one, we want to put in the next slit. And then the next one will go in the next slit right there, one of those slits. And then the very top one will go in the very top slit, like that. So when you first assemble it, you may need to pull that down a little bit and just get it to where it will move up and down easily. Now you can put a little wax on the edges if you'd like to. That'll help. So pull those all the way down. You may have to work them a little bit to get them to where they open and close smoothly. Now, on the back, you will see this, and that's what this is for. This is a stopper, and it's to keep the card from sliding too far. So go ahead and pull this out till you get almost to the top, about where you want those to show, so that they overlap just a tad. And then you're going to glue this to here, just above this line here, just above the top of this, and only on the two corners. Here and here. And then put it just above that. That'll keep it from pulling out too far. So I am going to let that dry because we want it to be nice and sturdy. So when you're ready to use the card, then you can just pull it up and push it down. And you can see it's already getting a lot looser. All right, this will go on the front of the base. And it does have score lines on each side, and you want to fold those over. That'll lift it off the card a little bit. And you'll want to run your glue just on those two sides. All right, so let's get that centered in the middle, and we're going to let that dry. It's important that it gets good and dry before we continue. Now, to decorate my little leaves, my little pine leaves, or what I've done is I have put some glue using the precision tip along the tops of those leaves, wherever snow might fall. And then I've taken my sugar glitter and I have sprinkled over that. And I'm going to let that dry. And then I've done the same thing here. I've just put a few little drops of glue here and then put a little glitter on that too. So we're going to let those dry and then we'll see what we've got. Okay, let's go ahead and, okay, there we have that. Now, I don't want this to interfere with that too much. It can come up over a little bit. Now I'm going to put some little berries there. Got a few little rhinestones here. I'm going to put those on there. These are probably a little big. They could probably be a little smaller, but that's okay. This is what I have. And then I'm going to glue that down right there. Now this is the shutter slack card that you have in your bundle. And here's the way it works. What I've decided to do with mine is to make a Halloween card. This is our base. This is our frame. This is our frame. This will be the inside of the card. And these are the components to build the card. Here's the base. Well, the first thing we want to do is to go ahead and fold on our score lines. And each of these have 4 score lines. And these will be installed on the base with this open side to the left. Now we need to figure out where the first one of these will go, so we put our frame on here. We want to line it up so we've got a little line at the top and the bottom so that when this opens, it'll have a way to open. It won't get caught. So I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to put a couple of little pieces of tape on here to hold it in place. I want to make sure that this is lined up. Now let's try that again. Okay, it needs to come that way just a tad. That looks about right. So that's where our first one is going to sit. And we're going to glue these 2 tabs down. And let those dry. Now we've got the first one in line, the rest of them will be easy to put in place. I'm going to fold these tabs over and put the glue here and here. And again with the open side here, we're going to lay this one right next to the one we just put in, lining it up top and bottom and making sure that we don't overlap. And then we're going to fold that down. Pretty close. And then we want to do the same thing with this one. Put the glue here and here, and then line this up next to it. And we're going to let those dry because we want this to be nice and dry before we add the mechanism, the rest of the mechanism. All right, now we've snugged this up right there and glued it down on those tabs. Now these tabs, that's what we're going to glue our frame on. So we want to put a little bit of glue on each one of those. And we want to put our frame on. Push all those tabs to the left and glue our frame to the tabs. And we're going to let that dry. We want to make sure that it's good and dry. Now we can check our shutter mechanism, make sure it works, and it does. Then I've got a decorative frame that I'm going to put around this also. And when we put it on, we want to make sure it doesn't impede the mechanism. So we'll put some glue on that. You can also put this on with dimensionals if you'd like to. I think I'm just going to glue it on. Oops, upside down. So we will line that up, just making sure it's clear of the mechanisms and straight on the edges. Now we're going to put our panels on. Of course, if it's easier for you, you can put your panels on before you put the frames on. It doesn't matter. But I have created a little scene here, and I'm going to put this, glue these here. This will be what you see when the card is closed. But you can put a floral or whatever the theme of your card is, of course, is what you'll want to use on these panels. Or you can just put some pretty cardstock or designer paper. Now I have glued my boo on the inside, so when you open the card, the boo is what you'll see. Now these panels will go on the inside here. And these might be easier to put in before you put the frame on. It's just up to you. If you put them on afterwards, then you can see how they're lined up. And those will cover the tabs that you have in there. All right, we'll put the next one. Pardon the head. And then the last one, of course, will go right here on the end. Okay, we're almost done. And here's our base. And I have made a little panel for the inside of that. You could put this in with dimensionals, but the card is pretty thick as it is, so it's probably best just to go ahead and glue that in. It won't make the card as bulky, especially if you're going to be mailing it. All right, now This is the front of our card, and this is where this will go. Right here. So we will glue this. And line it up. And we're going to let that dry. And then we'll come back and finish. Okay, all we have left to do is put on our arrow. Now this card is a 5x7. So if you want to put it in a 5x7 to mail it, then you probably need to trim down or make smaller these little arrows so it doesn't overlap outside the card. I'm going to make my own envelope, so I'm going to go ahead and include that. Let's put our orange on top of our black arrow. And then we will glue this right here. Now I am going to let that glue dry for a few minutes because that's what we're going to be pulling, and I don't want it to come off. So here is our fun Halloween shutter card. And of course, you can put whatever sentiment you want on the back or on the inside on this part. And if you don't want to make a Halloween card, I'm sure you have a lot of imagination. You can think of something you'd like to decorate the shutter card with. First thing you want to do is fold along the score lines, and I'm using double-sided cardstock for this. I'm going to burnish that down. This piece also has score lines. And these two pieces have score lines. Now, we have our panels, and we want to put the panels down next. And I have 4 panels, one for here, one for here, one for here, and one for here. The next thing you want to do is you want to put this piece in. But before you glue it down, you want to make sure that your hole on this piece lines up properly. Now this score line will line up with the top of this piece, and the score line down here will line up with that piece. It's about 3/4 of an inch on both sides, so that's good. Now let's see if we've got that lined up good. This score line will go across the top of this back piece, and the score line on the bottom will go across the back piece on the bottom. That looks good. Looks like it's right in the center there, so we will just leave that there. And we'll give that a minute to dry, and we'll come right back. Now on this piece, I've created a panel to go on top, a decorative panel. You don't have to do that if you don't want to, but I have, so I'm going to glue that together. Just make sure you get the hole lined up pretty close. All right. Now I've created a border, a frame for the circle. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, but it just adds a little something. And we're just going to glue that down. All right, now we're ready to put together our mechanism. And these two pieces make up the shutter, and they will go together like this when you get ready to put those on. Now we're going to run some double-sided tape on these two sides. I'm going to leave the paper on the tape for now. Then we're going to take this piece, fold down the two ends, and we're going to glue them here and here to the top and bottom only. Lined up right toward the top and right toward the bottom. Try to get it about even. You can measure it or you can just eyeball it. That's a little over 3/4 from the fold line. It's about 5/8 from the fold line. So that's pretty close. Now you can either use glue or you can use double-sided tape. I'm going to use glue. Fold that down and glue it. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom. And we need for that to dry for just a minute before we put the mechanism in. Now I do want to mention that on this piece, I went ahead and put my sentiment on, printed it on that back piece. But I have provided you with a little rectangle that you just glue it up there if you would rather do it that way. So what you want to do is you want to overlap this side over this side. And then slide this under here and put those as that iris, that little hole, as close to the center as you can get it, closing the hole up. And once you get that done, you want to take your paper off your sides and fold over the two flaps. And now you have your shutter mechanism. And you probably need to work it just a little bit to get it kind of broken in. Then you can go ahead and start decorating your card. Now I have chosen to put some leaves here, and I have also cut out some extra ones that I'll put on with dimensionals. And I could put this on with dimensionals and then put this also with dimensionals, but I'm afraid that the belly band would not slide on properly if I did that. So I'm just going to glue that down. going to take these and I'm going to line them up with the flowers I already have. Now you can see this stem is a little long, so I'm going to trim that off. And just line it up with those two there. And I'm going to add dimensionals to that. I'm lining up with the picture that I have on the page already. Okay, now we're ready to start on our belly band. And all I've done is cut out a piece of black and then some pattern paper, and I'm going to glue this to this. And as you can see on this one, I've kind of changed the end up a little bit, make it a little fancier for this particular card. And I made a decorative front. Now you can put a belly band on a lot of different ways. You can, I don't score it because it really needs to have kind of a loose fit. I think I'll put that to the side. Now you can put it like this and glue this on here and then just have it slide off. Or you can glue this here and then put either a magnet or some Velcro here to just close it like that. In this case, I think I'm just going to put some Velcro here. So I'm just going to glue this side to the belly band. Now, one I've given you in the project is a slide, and you can fold it over, slide this back and forth. But on this one, I'm going to just glue that on, and then I'm going to put a closure to close it. And that's all there is to it.
Thanks for watching, and if you find this video useful, don't forget to click the like, subscribe, and notification bell to stay informed about more exciting projects. I appreciate you watching my video, and I will see you next time. If you're a Cricut Design Space user, you can access some of my shared projects by opening Cricut Design Space, and on the home screen, in the search bar, type Art Graphics Studio and press Enter. Then scroll down to Community Members and click on Art Graphics Studio. There you'll find all of my shared projects.